Hello and welcome viewers, I am Bhupendra Pantola, you are watching Business World. We have with us Lavanya Jayaram, Regional Director, South Asia, AVPN. Ma'am, welcome to Business World.
Nice to meet you.
You were a part of the panel discussion. Give us the key takeaways from the session that you just had.
Well, it was an interesting panel that was exploring the synergies between business goals and the sense of purpose on what we need to do for the SDGs and the role of CSR in all of this. We had a lens which came in from sustainability officers to CSR heads to people who are working in skill development. So I think it was a very rich discussion in the panel and came with different lenses. So it was exciting. I think one of the key points that we deliberated on is the importance of private capital in ensuring that this vast SDG financing gap needs to be bridged by 2030. So that was one of our aims.
Also, thank you. So if we can talk over with whom do you work, like the stakeholders that AVPN has, and how does it ensure that the entire ecosystem works even with different stakeholders, and the commitment towards climate financing or social financing is actually met? How do you ensure that?
Yeah, so AVPN is the largest social investors network in Asia. Our work involves working with the continuum of capital, as we call it, which is philanthropic foundations, it could be impact funds, it could be corporate foundations, capital in any form that is being directed towards impact, whether it's for profit or not for profit. And our role and mission really is to try and move more of this capital towards impact work in a meaningful way that is more collaborative, more catalytic in nature, is blended so that we're able to bring in public-private partnerships to be made possible, but more even within the private partnerships to make more collaborations happen so that there is more bang for the buck really.
Okay. So how do you see the canvas of CSR growing, or the trends that is going to come ahead? Because I want to know specifically because India, that like if we call it Bharat, India is actually the Bharat, and the tier 2, tier 3 cities are the cities which really requires this, and right now the CSR is mandated at only 2% of the top companies. So what trends do you see coming ahead, and how important are the tier 2, tier 3 cities to be covered in this?
No, very wonderful and pertinent question. So right now, as we see, there is a lot of giving that happens in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, but it's in a way less understood, less transparent, because it's much more localized, hyper-local. Sometimes it's spiritual giving, sometimes it's political giving, sometimes it's personal giving. So it's not quantified in the way that the formal sector of CSR is quantified, but I believe it does not mean that it's not happening, because traditionally deep-rooted in Indian culture is a lot of philanthropy. It's come from our history. But I think it's an area that me personally and AVPN as an organization also is definitely committed to explore a lot more, to understand the philanthropy in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and specifically so the faith-based philanthropy as well, right? Because there's a large quantum of giving which is happening there, but of course less understood, less organized in that sense. Coming to your part of the question on the CSR aspect, CSR today, while 2% is the mandate, traditional organizations like the Tatas, Godrej, we've heard already on the panel today as well, they have been giving even before the mandate was there, and they're doing even beyond the 2%. Many organizations are doing. So I think these kinds of organizations historically have really built Bharat as well, right? So is that enough? No, there's of course much more that's required, but it's also more, I think, like I was saying earlier, coming together of this capital that's also required. In an ideal world, I'd love to see much more collaboration between large corporates so that there is more value and more scale that comes out of this collaborative.
All right. You rightly pointed that somewhere it is the ethos of our, the heavyweight companies or Indian companies, that they are really philanthropic in nature, if we see them. But you were also mentioning about the business oriented mechanism. So if you can just in brief over that to our viewers, how does it work?
Yeah. See, if as long as these are, and this is in that spirit of collaboration again, sorry to be using the word so much, but instead of keeping things all watertight, that business has to do things one way and CSR will do the good, if doing good becomes the way of life, becomes the way of running your business, whether it is the choice of products that you are building and selling, the kind of processes to ensure that your entire value chain is green. I think it's a journey of being aware that we are answerable to community, to climate, and to be able to make those conscious choices as we run our business, instead of saying that I will continue to do my business in a bad way and then let CSR do the 2% on doing good, right? So it's not a compensating effort from CSR. If the business itself takes on a mission to be green, to be conscientious, then I think the world will get to its SDG goals faster, because with business comes a purpose of profit as well, and I think it'll be much more meaningful and profitable then.
All right. So one trend, if we see, is whenever there is this economic headwinds, CSR. So suppose if some companies are giving more than 2% of their net profit, they tend to minimize the CSR. And somewhere in the last FY22 CSR, we have seen that there is a decline from the previous years. How do you think that what should CSR not be compromised, be it even the economic headwinds, and any trend that you see over there?
Well, 2% is a thumb rule. It's a measure by which people are tracking how much money is coming into community work. And of course, if it's going to be 2% of profits and the businesses haven't done very well, it is going to get a hit. But I don't think a year's data is something that we should be worrying about. If you look at the data sectorally, you will see that while health and education are ruling the roost as a number 1 and number 2 priority in India, it was also heartening to see how climate funding has gone up double, right? And that is a clear ask. It is something that we need to do much more of. So even looking at the trends at a micro level, I think is an important lens for us to take. But the other thing is also in terms of the kind of investments that went into impact funds, the fact that even during the pandemic, that was the most resilient kind of investment that was there and was profitable. It goes to show that, to my previous point, on integrating business as well as being good and being conscientious will make for a longer, sustainable effort in SDG achievements, I guess. Yeah.
So there has been a slight cut overall, but when it comes to the climate contribution, the number has doubled, and that's a very good thing, because obviously the COP commitments that we have made, it is needed in a way. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure as well. Thank you.